I was helping Lena pack her books when I found the old coffee stain on my sofa. It was from last summer. She'd knocked over her cup laughing at something I'd said. Now the stain felt like a landmark, something permanent in a room that was being emptied. She was sorting her life into cardboard boxes, and I was just handing her things. "Thanks for this," she said, not looking up from the stack of novels. "I can't believe how much stuff I've accumulated." "It's what happens when you stay in one place for a while," I said. My voice sounded normal, which was an achievement. She was moving to Berlin in a week. For a job, for the reasons people leave. Not for me, obviously. We worked in silence for a bit. I kept glancing at her, trying to memorize the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when concentrating. My phone was in my pocket. Stupid weight. I'd drafted a message last night. Just a few lines. Nothing dramatic. Just how I felt. I'd typed it out and stared at it until the screen went black. "I'm gonna miss these lazy Sundays." Placing a book in the box. "Yeah," I said. "Me too." I wanted to say more, but the words lodged in my throat. It was always like this. I'd planned to be honest, and then the moment would feel too heavy, too risky. What if what if she just smiled politely and said thank you? After she left with a box of kitchenware, I stood in the doorway for a minute. The apartment felt too quiet. I pulled out my phone. The draft still there. I read it again. It's simple. It said I'd loved her for years, that I was scared of her leaving, that I wished she'd stay, or that I could go with her. The last part was a desperate addition, and I deleted it. Too much. I hesitated. My thumb hovered over the send button. I put the phone down on the coffee. I made dinner, just pasta. But I wasn't hungry. I watched TV without really seeing it. My mind was on that message. Around 10, I picked the phone again. The screen glowed in the dark room. I thought, just send it. What's the worst that can happen? But the worst felt very real. Silence, or pity, or the awkwardness that would taint our last few days. I sent it. Just as I was about to lose my nerve, I tapped send. A wave of nausea hit me immediately. I stared at the screen. Delivered. No read. Not yet. I didn't sleep much. I checked my phone first thing in the morning. Still delivered. Not read. Maybe her phone was off. Maybe she saw the notification and didn't want to open it. The overthinking was a dull roar in my head. I went to work like any other day. I checked my phone between meetings. Still nothing. I saw her 2 days later for coffee. She talked about her visa, her new apartment, how excited she was. Normal stuff. She didn't mention the message. I couldn't bring it up. My phone sat between us like a secret. I kept wondering if she'd read it, and decided to ignore it, or if it was lost in some other folder. "I'll message you when I land," she said as we hugged goodbye outside the cafe. Her flight was in 3 days. "Please do," I said. She smiled, but it was the smile you give to a friend. A chapter closing. Now it's the night before her flight. I've checked my phone 100 times today. The message still says delivered. Not read. Imagining her phone buried in packing chaos, battery dead, or purposefully set aside. I want to call to ask if she got it, but that feels like begging. The silence is its own answer, I guess. I sit in my half-empty looking living room, watching the clock, and realize some things you say just disappear into the air, and some things you don't say stick to you forever. The clock ticks past midnight. Her flight leaves in 10 hours. I know I should let it go, but I keep refreshing the screen, waiting for a change that probably won't come. The message is there, floating in the digital space, unread. And I am here with all my words to it. I'll probably never know if she saw it. Maybe that's for the best. But it doesn't feel like it. It just feels like a hole where my courage used to be. The day of her flight was a Tuesday. I went to work like normal. I didn't tell anyone it was happening. Saying it out loud would have made it a fact. I just sat at my desk and refreshed the airline's website every 20 minutes. BA701. On time. I watched those words like they were a verdict. My phone was face up next to my keyboard. The message still said delivered. I started constructing theories. Maybe she'd gotten a new SIM card already. Maybe she'd backed up her phone and wiped it. And my message was in a digital void. The hope in that thought was pathetic. At 3 p.m., her takeoff time, I put my phone in my desk drawer and shut it. I lasted 7 minutes. When I took it out, nothing had changed. No read, certainly no reply. I imagined her at the gate, earbuds in, scrolling through music playlists, my message buried under notifications from airlines and moving companies. The casual oversight of it was worse than rejection. After work, I drove. I didn't plan to go to the airport. It felt like a scene from a bad movie. But I found myself on the highway toward the terminals anyway. I parked in the short-stay lot, which was expensive and stupid. I could see her terminal from there. I sat and watched a plane climb into the gray sky. Was that hers? Probably not. It felt like it was. I checked my phone one more time, there in the car. The delivered tag was a tiny, cruel monument. I opened her contact info. Her picture was smiling from a hike we did last spring. I clicked call. It rang twice, then went to a generic voicemail. Her old greeting, her cheerful voice asking me to leave a message. I hung up without a sound. The finality of that robotic prompt hit me harder than a busy signal. I drove home. The silence in the car was absolute. When I walked into my apartment, the absence was physical. The blank space on the shelf where her books used to be, the lack of her scarf on the hook. It was just an apartment now. I ordered food I didn't eat. The evening stretched out empty. Around 9, I did something desperate. I opened our old thread from before the message. The last thing she'd sent was a photo of a suitcase, comically overstuffed, with the caption "Mission Impossible." I'd replied with a laughing emoji. That was our truth. Jokes, surfaces, nothing real. I typed a new message. Hope you got off okay. I stared at it. It was a test. If she replied, it meant she'd seen the thread, which she'd have seen the other, unread message above it. My thumb hovered. Then I deleted it letter by letter. The test was too transparent. I was too tired. I went to bed early. I placed my phone on the nightstand. I think I knew then. The window had closed. The message, my feelings, they were relics. They belonged to the past, to a version of me who shared me, who'th coffee stir with a coffee stain and a woman who didn't know his heart. That version was gone. The man in the dark now just hadn't regret. The kind you learn to carry a week past. Life developed a new, dull routine. Work, supermarket. I found one of her hair ties on my bathroom floor one morning, a small coiled black thing. I didn't throw it away. I left it on the edge of the sink, and then after a few days, I put it in a drawer. I checked the message status less often. It became a habit, like probing a sore tooth. First thing in the morning, last thing at night. Still delivered. Her social media was quiet, then updated. A picture of a Berlin U-Bahn sign. A sunset over unfamiliar rooftops. She looked happy in a new, distant way. She hadn't texted me to say she'd landed. I'd had to learn it from that post. My friends asked about her once. Heard from Lena? My coworker, Mike, asked over a beer. Yeah, she's settling in, I lied. It was easier than explaining the silence. Good for her, he said, and the topic moved on. That was it. My great tragedy was a footnote in someone else's Friday night. I started running again, something I'd let slide. The physical pain was a clean distraction from the mental chatter. One evening, about 2 weeks after she'd gone, my phone buzzed mid-run. a message. My heart did a stupid, hopeful lurch. I fumbled to stop my music. It was a group text. A mutual friend was organizing a birthday drinks thing. Lena was tagged in it. She replied a minute later to the group. A cheerful, wish I could be there. Have one for me. A generic message sent to 10 people. I stood there on the pavement, sweating and out of breath, staring at her name on my screen. She was alive, she was online, she was texting. Just not me. The evidence was now undeniable. She had seen the thread. She had chosen not to acknowledge message. The delivered status was a technicality. In every way that mattered, it had been received and answered with silence. I didn't reply to the group thread. I walked home slowly, the run ruined. That night I did something final. I went into our message thread. I selected the unread confession. I didn't delete it. Instead, I tapped copy. Then I opened a notes app on my phone, created a new note, and pasted text there. I saved it as draft old. Then I went back to the message thread and deleted the entire conversation. The screen went blank. No messages. It wasn't about forgetting. It was about accepting the archive. The words were real. My feelings were real. But they were not for her anymore. They were just a fact of my history, stored in the wrong place. Now they were filed away, a private artifact. The active waiting was over. The silence was no longer a question. It was the answer. I put my phone on charge and went to make dinner, alone in the quiet kitchen, and 3 months to the day after she left, an email arrived. It was late on a Tuesday. The subject line was high. From her. My stomach dropped. I opened it, expecting a polite update, a forwarded joke. It began normally. She talked about Berlin, the language struggles, her new job, then the paragraph, about your message. I saw it. I saw the notification pop up that night while I was charging my phone buried in cables. I read it. I was terrified and so sad about leaving everything. Reading it felt like a gift and a grenade. I didn't know how to answer. What could I say? I know, or I feel it too, but I'm still leaving. Or why now? I thought I needed time to find the right words, but then the morning was chaos, the new life. And every day that passed, the right words felt further away. I'm sorry I let the silence be my answer. It was cowardly. But please know, it was never unread. I read it 4 times. The room was very still. All that agony, that cycle of checking and hoping and despairing, it had been based on a false premise. She knew. The entire time she knew. The relief was immediate, a physical unclenching in my chest. Right behind it came a sharper, more precise kind of regret. It wasn't about missed signals or technological glitches. It was a conscious, human choice on both sides. Mine to send it at the worst possible moment, hers to retreat into the practical chaos of leaving. We had both failed the moment in different ways. I didn't reply that night. The ball was back in my court, and the old hesitation returned, but it was quieter now. The mystery was solved. The pain was no longer about an unanswered question, but about a clear, sad understanding. She had held my heart in her hands in a Berlin hotel room, and had simply put it down, unsure what else to do. I finally knew. It didn't fix anything, but it changed the shape of the silence. It was no longer empty, it was full of her own unspoken words.